Thanks a million for joining, everyone. This is Ray Archie. We have a great presentation for you today, and it's been a great turnout so far. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Joycelyn Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say thank you to everyone who's on the call today, and let you know how much I appreciate you taking time out in this critical time right now to participate in this meeting. My name is Joycelyn Taylor. I myself am a small business owner. I am the co-founder of the New York City MWBE Alliance. I am also a possible candidate for mayor in 2021. We started the Alliance to assist minority and women-owned businesses with not just getting access to opportunity, but also to advocate on their behalf. First and foremost, I want to say that we're very lucky that we live in the great state of New York, and we're lucky to have a governor and a mayor that are on top of things. And I think they're playing a little bit of good cop, bad cop, but I do feel like it's a little reassuring to know that they are on top of things and they're trying to make sure that everyone is okay, with safety being our paramount priority right now. And while safety is our primary concern, we all want to adhere to those safety requirements. We do want to keep in mind that after all of this is over, it's going to be very important for us as business owners to be able to get back to our day-to-day lives and our livelihoods. So having said that, I felt it was very important to host this meeting because as a small business owner myself, I know we have a lot of issues and concerns because the reality of the situation is that some of our firms were struggling even before this pandemic happened. So I wanted to ensure that everyone has access to resources and that we're ensuring that our government leaders are making sure that they're making decisions that are going to impact us in the best way possible going forward, and to ensure that they include everyone, whether you're a small business owner, whether you own a coffee shop, a construction firm, a marketing firm, even if you're an independent artist, we need to make sure that everyone is considered during this time and that our voices are being heard. So the goal of, we have an agenda up, you see what the agenda is. We're going to try to stick to the agenda, and we're going to leave time for questions and answers to the end. So I did a brief introduction. I myself am on the call, Joycelyn Taylor. I want to apologize because originally we had planned on having Greg Bishop, who is the commissioner of SBS, on the call, but because it's such a hectic situation right now, he was called to another meeting that he has to have with some people at City Hall, and of course that took precedence over this meeting. But we do have another special guest, Clayton Banks, who is the co-founder and CEO of Silicone Harlem. And then we also have Ray Archie, who is going to be the moderator for us today, and he's the founder of Notes to Soul, which is a nonprofit organization. So what are our goals today? Our goals are to provide you with an opportunity for us to have an exchange of resources. There's so many resources that are out there and available. We want to make sure that we have an exchange of resources and experiences, and we want to get clarity on what the current conditions are due to this system. But in addition to sharing resources, I want to also hear from you about what are your issues and concerns. So like I said, we will do a question and answer in the end, and think about what those questions are. Think about how this pandemic has impacted you. So as I said before, the questions will be answered in the second half of this discussion. We're trying to keep the discussion to about 30 or 40 minutes or so. You will see a box that says Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You could type your questions there and we will take questions. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can if you go to chat via text during the actual meeting, but we will also take questions at the end. So the coronavirus, everyone has heard of it and everyone knows, like, unless you're under a rock, you know what's going on with the coronavirus right now. I've heard from 3 friends this morning that actually know someone either from their child's school or from their workplace or from, you know, their social life that have been impacted by this virus. So due to this, we all know that right now the governor has declared a state of emergency. And that happens when we think something that is imminent has happened and is severe enough that the state will need additional aid from the federal government and the federal government to step in to be able to assist us during this time of need. So what has happened so far? We know that schools have closed. We know that 100% of non-essential offices have closed. We know that bars and restaurants have closed. And for the most part, people now are hunkered in and everyone is trying to work from home. So that's the place that we're at right now. As of yesterday, the mayor has declared a statewide lockdown. And these are some of the restrictions that are going to go into effect tomorrow at 8 p.m. So a shutdown on all non-essential, everything that's non-essential across the state. So there'll just be groceries, pharmacies, and other essential establishments open. And we'll have a list of what's considered essential on the website. And for those who are not following me on social media on the website, you can follow me at Taylor for 2021, or you can go to the website at taylorfor2021.com. So that means that because we're on shutdown, there are no outside activities. Apparently, this is an issue with the guys because I've heard the governor say no basketball. I heard the mayor say no basketball. So basically, guys, no basketball for during this time. It's very important. All non-essential government and private sector employees are supposed to work from home. So if you do not have a business continuity or contingency plan in place, it's not too late to start one. Think about the things that you're going through now and that you're experiencing now. And think about how, if this were to happen today, the impact it's had on your business and what you want to do in God forbid, another situation like this. So you want to think about that because all non-essential government and private sector employees must work from home as of next week. Laundromats and gas stations will be allowed to remain open, as will liquor stores and restaurants for takeout and delivery service only. The MTA is going to continue to run because we have to get our healthcare providers to and from work. I'm not sure if the city is looking into possibly utilizing Uber drivers for that, but for right now, the MTA is still working. I know a couple of people who work from MTA, and from what I've been told is what they're doing is to alleviate the number of people that are out and about. They're asking that the workers actually work alternate weeks. You'll get paid for every week, but they're going to cut the staff in half by having every person work alternate weeks. So you won't work 2 weeks in a row. And of course, doctor's office and veterinarians' offices will remain open. We've been advised that unless you are told to come to the doctor, that if you feel like you're sick, you should stay home. So what did they do because of the coronavirus? The government, the federal government enacted HR 6201, which is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is going to help us. This is going to help small businesses because first and foremost, it should be on there. The SBA is going to start providing loan assistance for small businesses. On the city level, they also will provide some types of grants, but we'll get into that later. But this legislation is going to provide for paid leave, free testing for those who think they might be infected. It protects public health workers, and it provides important benefits for children and for families. One of the things that we heard initially when this first started was the impact on families and the fact that there were so many kids we were worried about if they were going to be able to stay home from school because they would not have any food. Well, they increased the SNAP benefits. They're paying sick leave for employees, and they're going to establish emergency unemployment stabilization. I believe the goal is to make sure that this legislation is finally signed today so that they can get these things going as soon as possible. The other thing that will be available is they're thinking about giving out stipends or stimulus checks to every American, and that's based upon your income and various other things. Health resources. For health and safety information in the city of New York, if you type COVID, if you text COVID to 692-692, you will receive regular coronavirus updates via text. And if you're Spanish speaking, if you text COVID SP, you'll also be able to receive that information. The New York City, can we go back for 1 second? The New York City Medical Reserves Corps, it's a trained group of 9,000 members, and they're going to be ready to respond to health emergencies. They're asking for medical professionals who are interested. If you're retired, if you're a medical professional and you're interested, to please sign up to provide assistance during this time. Thank you. We could go on. Now we're getting to the good part. Assistance and guidance for businesses impacted due to the coronavirus. So if you haven't been to SBS's website as of yet, SBS has a ton of resources that are here to provide for business owners during this crisis. One of the reasons why I did want to have Greg on is because although this is up to date, I would like to have some information on what they're thinking going forward aside from this. But let's talk about some of the things that are available. There will be small business loans and grants available. The grants will be up to $27,000 or $24,000 for small businesses. If you look on the SBS's website, SBS website, they'll give you some additional information in regards to the grants. And when we get further on in the program, you'll see some information related to what the eligibility requirements are for those grants. But there are grants that are available. There's a small business continuity fund, which provides for a loan if you've had a 25% decrease in your revenue. There's also the grant, and there's also two loans that are available. If you had a 25% decrease in revenue since the pandemic has started, then you will be eligible for these types of grants and loans. And as we go further in the presentation, I'll talk a little bit more about those grants and loans that are available. One of the things that I do want to talk about is some of the other resources, because not everyone is in a traditional type of business. We do have some businesses, if you're a bartender, if you're an independent worker, if you're a creative, if you're a singer, if you're a dancer, if everyone is impacted by this. So I wanted to give some information on other types of grants that are available as well. If you've been impacted because now you have additional medical expenses, you can get an emergency grant for that. There's also a One Fair Wage grant. It provides assistance to employees who think that they aren't going to be able to survive during this time. One of the things I want to say to you about these things is that I'll give you information where you can get more details about these grants as well. So let's talk about some of the things that are specific to New York. So the New York City Retention Grant. This is being offered to small businesses that have 5 employees or less. And it's a grant that will cover up to 40% of your payroll for 2 months. And the requirements are you have to be located within the city. You have to be able to prove that this outbreak has caused a 25% decrease. And you must employ 1 to 4 employees across all of your locations. So if you have more than 5 employees, this does not apply to you. This is for firms that have 5 employees or less. This is the grant that's available to you. And you do have to have been in business for at least 6 months and have no outstanding tax liens or legal judgments. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to do any waivers in regards to that, but that's one of the questions that I'm going to pose to SBS separately to see if we can get some answers in regards to that. The other thing that is available is the New York City Small Business Continuity Fund. If you have less than 100 employees, and if your sales have decreased by 25%, so let's say you're a construction firm and you had 4 projects going on and 2 of your projects had to be shut down because of the coronavirus, you should be eligible, or you may be eligible for this 0 interest loan for up to $75,000. I know that hopefully these numbers will change, because I know that for a lot of businesses, $75,000 may not be enough if you have to continue with your break-even expenses between that time period. The other thing I want to say about that is that you have to be, the eligibility requirements are that you have to be located within the 5 boroughs. Again, you have to demonstrate that you've lost 25% in revenue. You have to employ 99 people or less. And you have to have ability to repay the loan. No outstanding liens, no outstanding judgments. What I want to say about this before we move on is this. You know, small businesses, much like the attacks on 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy, small businesses are the ones that are impacted the most. And I thought that it was important to have this call, because the thing about it that I want us all to realize is that we, as a small business community, we have to come together and we have to mobilize, because a lot of small firms have already taken out loans to do work with the city and state. And to have this come up now and be in a position where you have to take out additional monies is just not the right thing to do. So in addition to this, I want you to know that I started a petition on change.org, because I want you to sign that petition, share it with others, because I'm calling on the federal, state, and city government to not provide loans for small businesses, to provide grants. Why should small businesses who could afford it the least have to, at this time, take on additional debt in order to be able to survive? We are the fabric of our communities. We are the ones that hire locally. And in this time, if we don't mobilize, then the government may not come together to look out for us. If you want small businesses to survive past this, we have to provide funds. We bailed out big business before. Big business is always too big to fail. Do we know if that's true or not? We don't know, because you know what? We never let them fail. We always bail them out. And at the end of the day, the diversity of the money that goes into the pot has to match who that money helps, right? And big business is going through a lot. The stock market is doing really badly right now because of the fact, not because it's doing bad, but because of the fact that people who could afford to took their money out the stock market. We should not use trillions of dollars of tax dollars to put that money in, so they could have taken it out, and now the stocks are going to go up. They'll buy again at a low price and then still make more money. It just doesn't make common sense. So please sign the petition. Please ensure that you get involved. This is the time we have to mobilize. We can't just let our elected officials do what they think is best for us. We know our situations. We have to think about what's best for us, and we have to make sure that we're reaching out to them and telling them what we want to see. If you go to the petition, you're going to see a link there for how to contact the president, how to contact the governor, how to contact the mayor, how to contact your assembly people, how to contact your senators. We can't wait until these decisions have been made. We have to act now. This $24,000 grant is great, but it's just not enough. We have to get the government to support small business. So that's all I'm going to say about that. At this point, I want to turn it over to Clayton Banks, who's going to give you some really important information on other support that's available for you through Silicon Harlem. So I'll hand it over to you now, Clayton. I think he may still be on mute.
Stand by, unmuting Clayton.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I think Clayton is still on mute. Maybe he doesn't realize that he's on mute, but I'm sure he'll be on in a second. He has some really valuable information on things that you can do to assist in applications that you could utilize if you're going to be working from home, and how Silicon Harlem is actually, I'm sorry, is helping the small business community to get connected. So let's give Clayton one more minute. If he doesn't come back on, if we don't get him back on, I know he was on earlier.
You know, right now we do have a few questions.
Okay,
Joycelyn, do you
let's
mind?
take some questions.
Yes, Emanuela asked. She's a self-employed certified health and life coach, and she's certified as MWBE. She started her business early last year and was working a part-time job to be able to pay her bills and for necessities. But her part-time job is now over. You know, what's available to her? Do you imagine, you know, is she able to take advantage of the New York City small business continuity? She's basically a business of one.
So it sounds like she should be eligible for the grant, because the grant is the one that actually says 1 to 4 employees. But if she's working independently, and I think that's one of the challenges, and part of the reason why I wanted to see if we could have the commissioner on and talk about it, is because a lot of businesses do not employ someone else. So how do we address those businesses? And that's why it's so important that we have communication with our elected officials and the people who are in charge, to let them know that you're forgetting me. So based upon what she's saying, she should be eligible for the grant. What I would do was, I would suggest that she apply for the grant, and then also separately sign the petition, and let's start reaching out to our elected officials and let them know that we have a bucket of people who work independently that you're forgetting about, and we need to address those people. But I would say for now, to apply for the grant, it should be up to $24,000. I believe that they're going to start making payments within the next 2 weeks or so. The other thing is to file for unemployment. They're putting together, as part of the package to assist businesses, they're allowing a lot more leniency and a lot more resources to be available for unemployment. So I would suggest that she file for unemployment as well.
Excellent.
And this is Clayton. Clayton is here.
All right, let's hand it over to Mr. Banks.
I appreciate it. I was on a different device so I heard everything, but my device went dead, so I had to switch to my mobile. At any rate, the virus has certainly put a big light on one of the big things that all of us are going to need to do any of these things, including applying for grants, is you're going to have broadband. So you're going to need a device, a connection, to do any of these things, to work with your colleagues, to apply for grants, to work with your vendors and bills. There's a lot that's going to happen over the next 30 to 60 days where connectivity becomes quite important. And now that we've closed a lot of the schools, there's kids that are at home now, and if they don't have the infrastructure in the home, there's a real challenge for the parents and for the household in general. Most students have to log into Google Classroom to get their homework done, et cetera. So we have a big challenge here to make sure that the Upper Manhattan community and communities all around New York City are getting the kind of access through connectivity. There are a variety of programs from a variety of providers that are allowing people who are not connected to get connected, particularly through hotspots. Right now, even the libraries are closed. So without access to the library, where a lot of people who don't have the infrastructure in their home rely on the public library system, those are also closed. I've been asking them to share some of their hotspots, at least at minimum, outside of their facilities. But that's a big thing for all of you, and any of you who are business owners. Certainly, I'm sure you're challenged with that as well. But please feel free to email me, go to our website, and we will be helpful. The other thing I wanted to just bring up is, because we're all remote now, not only is connectivity important, but the different types of applications you're going to use. The one we're using right now, called Zoom, has grown 500% in the last 30 days. So everyone's realizing that they need these type of collaborative applications in order to keep their businesses running. So if you're not familiar with these type of applications, specifically Zoom, where you can utilize it for meetings, you can utilize it for announcements, even if you're announcing a mayoral run. So you have this great opportunity to build your database and have people connected to you through these applications. Finally, I'd say Silicon Harlem, myself and my team are more than willing to work with anyone on this call or anyone that you might know that needs some help from a digital literacy perspective, or even how to get online, or how to navigate some of the things that the candidate actually explained. We are here to help. So we're going to focus a lot of our energy around Upper Manhattan. That's the most vulnerable area right now that we've identified, but we'll go anywhere and certainly have the remote capability to help people get through this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Clayton. And the other thing I want to say right now is that if you are in the IT industry, you should be looking and thinking about how you can assist during this time, and also how you might be able to create opportunity from this. Reach out to the city, reach out to the state. I know that the governor, when he's done his press conference, has been talking about, various types of business and, you know, if you want to do this kind of thing, reach out to the state. They'll actually give you money for it now. So this might be an opportunity for some businesses for you to think about how you can reinvent yourself, right? Maybe you were doing something before, and maybe you think that maybe you owned a restaurant before, and you're thinking that, you know what, you love to sew and you've been sewing before. Maybe you're going to sew masks. Maybe you're going to sew scrubs for the people in the healthcare industry. Think outside the box during this time to understand how you know, you can make sure that during this time you're okay. I know it's a little challenging right now because we all have to stay in, and we're all being advised to stay in, but let's all think about the outside the box. The other thing that I want to tell you about, because I do want to be able to have a chance to ask questions, is that if you go onto my website, which is taylorfor2021.com, you will see some resources and some of the things that we've also already talked about. There's some resources that are available. But in addition to that, I just lost the slide. But in addition to that, what I was going to say is that we are going to email you a link of resources. The resources will be things just in general. If you want to talk about how you could stay strong and healthy during this time, if you want to talk about, or if you want information on to make sure what you need to do to make sure you're addressing yourself mentally, not just physically, but mentally, resources that are available. If you're a small business owner and you need resources for grants, for emergency funding, we have a ton of resources there. If you're a creative, if you're in the arts, if you're in dance, if you're in music, we have a ton of resources there and things that are available for you as well. So after this virtual meeting is done, we are going to email you a list of over right now 60 resources that are just not only for your business needs, but your personal needs as well. So take advantage of that list and feel free to share it with others as you deem appropriate. If you want to add anything onto that list, send us an email or send us some information. Here is the list. Thank you so much. This is just some of the things that we have available on this list. It talks about the continuity fund, that loan option, the grants, commercial lease assistance, the SBA loans that are available, guidance for business and employers, conference organizing, application for suspension of debt collection. It also tells you about some of the Senate bills that are out right now in regards to this. So this is a very thorough and thought out list of resources available that my team, through my campaign at Taylor for 2021, got together and put together that we thought would be helpful to all of you during this time, because we do have to be a resource to each other. So like I said, there's information when you get this email and you get this spreadsheet. There will be 3 tabs there. One tab will be general resources. One tab will be resources specifically for small businesses. And one tab will be resources for those of you who are in the arts. And as you can see, there's a ton of resources, a lot of which provide you information regarding to emergency funding. And we have the information on even what kind of type of, what's the source and what type of funding that they provide. So it's an excellent tool. Be sure to utilize it. Be sure to share it with others as well. So I think where are we at? We're at 3:35 right now. Are we?
Yeah, we actually, I really want to thank our participants for posting a lot of questions here. So I'm just going to go through a few. I'd love for you and Clayton to help answer these live. Anna Lavadas she says, you know, we have a loan through the NYC Construction Fund, and we're told they stopped allowing us to withdraw money for projected costs, even though we can continue working since our work is considered essential. Can we ask the city to continue making loan payments? We would rather get proceeds from an existing loan than apply for a new loan.
So here's what I'm going to say to you about that. I don't know what the interest rate is for your existing loan, but if the interest rate for the new loan is lower, I would go ahead and get that lower rated money, because in some instances, those loan rates are 0%. It's from 0 to 3.75%. I think with the other construction, what did she say, construction fund? I'm sorry, Ray.
Yes. Ask the city to continue making loan payments. Yes, an NYC Construction Fund was the loaner.
Okay. I'm not sure if that is the city's small business loans, that program that they started. I know their rates are pretty low as well, but that would probably have been a great question. And I think that if I'm thinking about it, my answer to that question would be to find out how long they're going to actually hold up giving you those funds. Because if they're going to hold up giving you those funds and it's going to delay your project and it's still considered essential, you have to make that kind of business decision as it relates to what's best for your business. But I do want to say that with some of the loans that they're providing right now, they are allowing for a 0% interest in some instances.
That's great. Thank you. Natalie Besson, and this might be for either you or Clayton, what documentation would you need for the loans and the grants? Someone else actually mentioned it's hard to create this documentation because, you know, this pandemic, this urgent financial issue is only a few weeks old.
Yeah, I could speak to that as it relates to the loans and the grants. If you go on SBS's website, they'll have a list there of what the supporting documentation is. But basically, they're saying that they want financial documents for 2 months, demonstrating the revenue of decrease of 25%. And that financial documentation that they're asking for the first 2 months of 2020, and then for the same first 2 months of 2019, so they could see what the difference is during this period to now, from last year to this year. And here's what I'm going to say about that. And again, this is why it's so important that we get involved and we speak to our elected officials and we have input as it relates to the things that they're putting in order. As I look at this and I'm looking at it, to me, I'm not sure if this is a good measure of a decrease for something that just happened, right? If you're telling me now to stop my business, you're not going to see that decrease 2 months from last year and 2 months from January and February of last year and January and February of this year might look the same. So that's why I'm saying it's important. Please sign the petition. Please reach out to your elected officials to let them know that what they're asking for may not actually work. It may not get the results that they're looking for, but that's what they're looking for. They're doing a comparison of 2 years from 2 months, I should say, from 2019, and they're comparing it to the first 2 months of 2020, which will probably be the same, right? And that's what they're using as a barometer to determine your eligibility.
We have a amazing question from Karen DePerry. She owns a hospitality staffing company, and she's advised everyone to apply for unemployment. Her question, 1, if there is no work, do they qualify for sick time? 2, for size requirements, how are 100 employees counted? Is that FTE full-time or all part-time / full-time combined?
That's an excellent question as it relates to how the staff is counted, whether it's all full-time or part-time. When I'm looking at the requirements and who should apply, it doesn't actually specify that. So there's no indication to whether or not the employees need to be full-time or part-time. They just indicate the number of employees. So I would say I would have all of them apply for unemployment.
Right. So to reiterate, it's a combination of both 1099 and W-2s.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So it's both a combination of your 1099 employees as well as your W-2s.
Yeah, so your 1099 employees, I don't believe that you pay into unemployment. But I think that this might be a unique circumstance where you might still be able to qualify. I'm going to tell everyone, when in doubt, apply. If you've worked before, you've paid into the system. So apply for it and see if you're eligible, right? The worst that someone can tell you is no. But if you ask, maybe the answer will be yes. But I know that for full-time employees that get a W-2, you are paying into unemployment and you should be eligible to receive it.
Another question, this is from Ava CV. I cannot demonstrate right now a 25% decrease, but I have no business coming in. I would like to not lay off my employees, but this is not a good barometer for me. I'm in advertising and shoot commercials, and all production is halted for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I understand what she's saying. And that's what, the grant that's up, the employee retention grant is for, to be able to pay employees in the demonstration that they're doing now. But did she say how many employees she has, right?
I'm checking. She did not.
Okay, because the employee retention grant is only for less than 5 employees. So if she has more employees than 5, she's not even eligible for this. She would have to actually take out some type of loan. So my suggestion to her would be to examine her business, look at her break-even costs, look at what her access to capital is, what her cash flow is, and to make that decision from a business perspective. Unfortunately, I can't give business advice, but one of the things that I do want to encourage you to do is, again, sign a petition and let's start having these conversations with our elected officials. Because I don't think, one thing I always say to people about this life that we created for ourselves, and I always say that we created it because God created heaven, earth, human beings, animals, the flowers that we don't smell enough, right? But we created these systems, policies, and procedures, right? We created work. We created this employee retention program right now. And if we don't have input from everyday people who are impacted by these things, on these things, then it doesn't work for us. And so many times we have people that get into a room and we're trying to create something that's one size fits all, and life is just not one size fits all. So again, I know hopefully the process to actually apply for these things is not too strenuous. It seems like for a lot of the programs, they're asking for the same information. My suggestion would be that if you have under 5 employees, apply. Apply for the grant, apply for the loan. If you have more than 5 employees, then apply. But also on parallel track to that, let's start having the conversation with our elected officials about what it is that we want to see happen.
So this is an interesting question from Carol Baird. I have 7 part-time employees that work between 2 and 10 hours per week. for a total of 50 hours per week altogether. Is this considered for employees?
I would say no. It's not going by the hours, it's going by the number of people.
Totally makes sense. Brenda Bueno has a very interesting question. First off, she thanks you for all of your help and your time and hard work. Her question is, do you know of any resources available for a group home family daycare? We lost children, but still remain essential as a child care small business. We also lost employees. We employ 5 to 10 employees, so we don't qualify for the retention grant. Please help.
So, and please chime in if I'm getting this question wrong. I think the question that you're asking is, do I know of any resources any places that you might be a resource to at this time? I want to say that when I was listening to the governor's press conference earlier and the mayor's press conference, there are some child facilities that are still open. And one of the things that they were asking is if people would be open to being a resource during this time, because the people who work in the healthcare industry, the people who work for transit, and all of those areas that are considered essential, that still have to go to work, some of them don't have childcare options. So I'm going to suggest if she can send us a note on our website at taylor42021.com with her information, I will actually connect her with someone in the commissioner's office at SBS to see how she can possibly work together with them and how they can be a resource. I hope that answered the question.
That was excellent. I actually did send her a direct chat message with the URL. So from Albert Adams, I own a health and wellness business, and I have several contracts suspended or postponed due to the coronavirus. Would the grant help me, and what is the maximum? Lastly, this doesn't have to be paid back, correct?
The grants do not need to be paid back. I don't see anything here about the grant being paid back. But in order to qualify for the grant, you have to have 5 or less employees. The maximum amount of the grant is $27,000. So if you fall within that criteria, if you have less than 5 employees, you've seen a decrease in revenue. You also have the decrease in revenue.
Put it over here.
Less than 5 employees, you've been in operations for at least 6 months, you don't have any liens or judgments, you should qualify for this grant. And just excuse me, I'm just looking at some notes from information I received from SBS to just confirm whether or not it says anything about having to pay back that grant. And I would hope not, because during this time, again, I'm going to say it again, we have all invested in this system. It's time that we ensure that we see a return on that investment and that we ensure that the funds that have been invested are utilized or a resource for everyone. Everyone during this time needs to be able to eat. I don't care if you're a big corporation and you are struggling. Well, here's the thing about the big corporations. A lot of them were doing well before this. So to me, when you talk about the big corporations not doing well right now, it's a little different when you're not doing well, but you have a 100 million in profit. Then when you're not doing well and you've already taken out 2 loans and you're almost borrowing from Peter to pay Paul every month, right? So that's a little different to me, but it's very important. Sign a petition, Reach out to our elected officials. We need to make sure that more grants and higher dollar amounts are provided. We need to ensure that we don't have to pay these grants back. I hope that answered the question.
That was great. We have a question. My husband owns a construction safety training school in Brooklyn with less than 5 employees. He is currently completing his MWBE certification. Will this affect his eligibility for the funding programs on the city, state, and federal levels?
No, for these programs, it's not specific to MWBE. It's all small businesses. So whether you're a MWBE firm or just a regular small business, you will be able to apply for these grants and this additional funding as well.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
No, no worries.
It's interesting. So a follow-up from Ava, and this I think might speak to several businesses. She says, my problem is my revenue was better in 2020 than in 2019. So I can't show a decrease. I have so many loans now due to a bad year in 2019. 2020 was turning around and now nothing.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said earlier, I totally understand what you're saying. And that's why I was saying earlier how important it is for us to engage our elected officials and let them understand what real life is for a small business. Because just because the numbers are different doesn't mean that you're going to be okay. I realize and I understand that a lot of small businesses have taken out loans, especially if you're doing work with the city and the state, to do their projects. So please sign the petition. If you send me an email, if you send your information, I would love to be able to share that information with the deputy mayor and the commissioner's office for SBS to let them know that these are possible scenarios and how they're going to address it. Because even though your business was doing better, by virtue of this, by virtue of the lockdown, it will have an impact on your business. So send me that information on your scenario. I want to share it with them so that they'll have that top of mind and they can start having that conversation. But also, like I said, sign a petition, reach out. It takes 2 minutes to sign a petition, do an email that you can send to each one of those entities and share it with your friends and ask them to do the same, because that's how change happens. When we look at the situations with the schools, the United Federation of Teachers started a petition. Within 1 day of that petition, they had 150,000 signatures. Due to that, that's when the schools closed. But if we don't act, if we don't come together, we have to understand that your business is just not you. Ask your employees to sign the petition. They've been impacted. Ask your landlords to sign. Ask whomever is in your family to sign and to get involved to help all of us as a small business community, because they're not considering all scenarios, and not everything that's put in place will be something that works for us. And we just want to make sure that we're heard and that things that work for us are really happening. So send me that information.
We have a really great question from Dom Ebanks. Dom says, thank you for mentioning to reach out to the city and or state to ask if they have a need for technology services. Great point that many of us are not thinking about. Mm-hmm. Dom is the owner of kutadigital.com. He's MWBE certified digital marketing and software database development firm. So it hits home for him. Dom's question: Are there any departments or people that you may recommend one can reach out to?
I would say to reach out to the commissioner of the New York City Department of Information and Technology to see if they have any opportunities that are going on. And let me just also say this, I have already reached out to several offices, because one of the things that I said related to this pandemic is this. The city, the state, and federal government should be looking for opportunities where they can engage small businesses at this time. Yes, it's part of the effort of us reaching out to them, but they should be creating this opportunity, even as it relates to like construction firms. I know a lot of construction firms are struggling. Some of the projects stop. Well, why can't you have the construction firms now do cleaning of schools? Because I'm sure we want to clean those schools and make sure that they're up to par before the students come back. Or clean parks, or do other things. Why can't you have Uber drivers, a lot of whom are seeing a decrease in service? Why can't you utilize them to get some of our healthcare workers back and forth to work and that type of thing? And those are the things that I'm talking about. I understand it's a crisis, and there are a lot of things, there are a lot of moving parts and things that the government is trying to do. But I also want to see the government look into say, well, listen, let's create opportunity for this. I don't want them to just throw their hands up and say, everybody collect unemployment. No, that's not the answer. If they can find ways for us to keep our businesses going and remain viable, they should be thinking about those things. I hope that they're thinking about those things, but it's important that we also it's important that we also reach out to them and kind of tap them on their shoulder and remind them that we're still here. I know for some of the procurements right now, especially, that they are reducing some of the requirements. They're doing bids online for a lot of agencies and that type of thing to make it easier. But reach out to the agency. If there was an agency that you were trying to work with before and you weren't able to get opportunity and you have a resource, reach out to the commissioner. Most agencies have a chief diversity officer. Reach out to the diversity officer and say, listen, if you have an idea, a suggestion, reach out and give them that information and see if you can use this time to build a relationship.
I'll piggyback on that just a little bit. Yeah, the agencies are important. Do It, which Taylor mentioned, is one that you want to reach out. The other one is the Chief Technology Officers Commission, because they are the ones that are now sort of overseeing, they work hand in hand with Do It, but basically overseeing contracts that you're seeking. And right now we need all hands on deck, so please do that. And certainly connect with us, Silicon Harlem. We can probably help with getting some of those contracts for you as well.
Thank you, Clayton. See, you have a resource right there. Clayton will help you out. He'll bridge that gap for you. But one of the things I also want to say just to the small business community, one of the things I always say is that when it relates to small and MWBE firms, we always hear people say that we don't have capacity. And one of the things that I've said to people, to me, is that there's a difference between capacity and stupidity. Capacity means that somebody has a project, they give you money, you do their project, and if they have another project, they give you money, you have the capacity to do that as well. Our stupidity has been when the city and state has a project, they want us to use our money and go do their project and borrow money or utilize our money and then wait for them to pay us. You will not grow your business under that model. And maybe this is the time for us to start having that conversation to tell the city and the state, you know what, we would like for you to take a little bit more financial responsibility for your own projects. Because then when things like this happen, we don't have to sit back and have conversations and talk about how now we're going to pay all of these loans that we borrowed to do their projects. We have to, have different expectations from them, and we have to make our ask different. I hope that this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what it is we want to see going forward. So at least if something like this happens again, we're not having the same conversations related to how we're going to survive. You know, we're putting things in place that are going to make sure that these transitions, while challenging, are a lot easier when it relates to the things that we can control. So that's why I want to talk about some of the things that you can do. Please, please, please sign the petition. We are too small to survive this. The petition is on change.org. There's going to be a follow-up email that's going to have a list of resources that we shared in this meeting. There's a ton of resources. Utilize those resources. If you have a question in regards to something, feel free to reach out. Again, taylor42021.com. You can send us a message on Let's Chat. There's also a box there that says connect. You could connect to me through that as well. So, were there any other questions?
Yes, from Veronica Romero, and I'm going to actually send her a direct link to some resources as well. But Veronica says, I have 2 restaurants and a catering business. We had 100% cancellations on catering. So from the 9 employees I would inevitably have to let go some if I now have 5 or less. I think that she's laid off more than 4 of her 9 employees. Can my company apply for the retention employee grant? My cash flow this 2020 started very bad and I'm having problems even paying them now.
That's an excellent question. And you know, the thing about this grant as it's written doesn't say for employees as of when. So if you have 5 or less employees as of now, I would apply for the grant, right? Because it doesn't say specifically. See, that's something that they didn't think about. For employees as of when. It just says employ 1 to 4 employees in total across all locations. So if you had to let some people go and now you have 4 employees, I would apply.
We have pretty much answered all of our questions.
Oh, wow, that was
and I
fun.
know we are just exactly 2 minutes over. So I think we should wrap. I do want to let everyone know that there will be a recording of this webinar available to everyone afterwards. As Joycelyn mentioned, we will be making sure that you have access to all of the resources mentioned today and more. In fact, I think later next week, we'll create a process that allows you to even suggest resources to this community that we're pulling together. We don't want to pretend that we know everything. And so as you learn, we encourage you to share, to help to keep connected and keep growing and supporting this community. With that said, Joycelyn, why don't you take us off with a few final words?
Thank you, Ray. I just want to thank everyone who had the chance to participate today. I think it's very important that we continue to be a resource to each other. And I hope that you found this information to be helpful. As I said before, you can always still go onto my website, taylor42021.com. And see information. Also, please follow me on all of my social media. As information and resources become available, I always share them on my social media platform, which is at Taylor42021. Please come on, follow me on social media. Invite your friends and family to follow me as well. My campaign is a grassroots campaign, but it's all about common sense approaches, making sure that we're taking care of everyone, because we are all better when everyone is better. So I hope that you'll not only continue to support me as I do these things, because I also do some Facebook Live streamings, conversation and collard greens, but that you will continue to support my campaign going forward. All right, I appreciate everyone chiming in. I just want to leave with this last word that I always say whenever I have an opportunity to meet with people. My cousin Jovian Zane started an International Day of Purpose. It's on the summer solstice every year. And one of the first things she said, not one of the first things, but one of the things she said at her first event, and it's always stuck with me, is that you can't be your best self by yourself. So during this time of this pandemic, I hope we all remember that we all continue to be a resource to each other, help each out as much as we possibly can. And that's the way that we're all going to be able to get through this. All right, guys, thanks again for chiming in. I hope to be able to do this again soon. If there's a specific agency that you would like to see me have on, send me a message and let me know. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate you. I hope this was helpful.